Et à présent, je vous propose une retransmission en direct de Sharm el-Sheikh pour les activités de la COP 27.
Will we have a clear discussion on one of the solutions as it relates to the operating entity? It may be that they can discuss other things, but the thing is, at the end of the day, we need to understand where is the best place to put our energy and to have focused discussions, as opposed to maybe having plenary discussions where we may never get to a concrete solution and outcome. Is that the best place to have these discussions? So the last thing is on Glasgow Dialogue and its involvement on the process. I think it is a space, and we've been discussing it, and it involves external stakeholders, and so it might be the place where you discuss things, solutions that are outside of the UNFCCC and the financial mechanism, right? So that may be an adequate place to sort of complement what the ad hoc committee is doing and having those discussions in the Glasgow Dialogue, because you can invite experts, stakeholders there, and they can say what are their issues, what are their plights, what are their barriers, and then Madam Co-Facilitator on process and way forward. Thanks a lot.
Thanks, Mikhail, also for reminding us of the work that has been done and the role of different processes that had been established, and others have also referred to this work. So thank you, Antigua and Barbuda, on behalf of AOSIS. This concludes the list that we had taken from the last session. And I note Bangladesh has asked for the floor. So Bangladesh, please.
I can come back later. Thank you, co-facilitator. You know that Bangladesh is one of the most vulnerable countries to climate change impacts. Our vulnerable communities and ecosystems are already facing loss and damage resulting from climate change impacts. So we do urge developed countries to support us with new, additional, and predictable finance to take urgent actions at the local, national, and regional levels to deal with loss and damage. We also recognize that there is a need for an innovative funding mechanisms under a standalone financial facility under the Convention and Paris Agreement to support the immediate needs of the vulnerable communities soon after a climate-induced events. We do recognize that Warsaw International Mechanism for Loss and Damage is evolving. We established the Executive Committee, which we consider it as the policy arm of Warsaw International Mechanism. We established the Santiago Network for Loss and Damage and working here to agree on the institutional structure for Santiago Network for Loss and Damage that we consider as an implementing arm. We do appreciate that we agreed here at COP27 on the agenda item on the funding arrangements for loss and damage, and hope we will agree on design an effective financial facility no later than 2024. Now, in response to the question you facilitators provided us, we would like to associate it with the views expressed by the Senegal on behalf of the LDC group. We reiterate that this Sharm el-Sheikh finance facility that proposed by LDC need to establish here at COP27. There is a need for developing further operational modalities for the proposed finance facility, and we can work next 2 years to develop such operational modalities. As LDCs proposed for an ad hoc committee to work in collaboration with other technical groups, including Glasgow Dialogue. However, current modalities of the Glasgow Dialogue would not be useful, and hence Bangladesh proposed to agree on effective modalities for Glasgow Dialogue that can propose technical inputs to the proposed transitional committee. So, a clear roadmap and structured institutions can work next 2 years, and we can agree on the operational modalities for finance facility to launch the facility no later than 2024. Thank you, facilitator again. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Bangladesh. I have Colombia now, and I would just like to remind you that you can use the technical facilities to ask for the floor, so that we can then also see it on the screen by pushing the button on at your seat. So I have Colombia, then followed by Switzerland. Colombia, you have the floor.
Thank you very much, Madam Co-Facilitator. Good morning, colleagues. Let me start saying that I'm speaking on behalf of ILAC and saying that in the same lines as the position of G77, South Africa, AOSIS, and others, we would like to highlight some points in terms of process. Particularly 4 points that I'm going to highlight at this point. First, ILAC is looking for the establishment of a new fund within the UNFCCC exclusively and fit for purpose for assisting developing countries in meeting their cost of addressing non-economic and economic loss and damage, including from extreme weather events and slow onset events, to recover, reconstruct, and rehabilitate in a way that they create resilience and build back better. The decision establishing the fund is to be taken here in Sharm el-Sheikh. Second, we need a process to be open at COP27 to design this new fund. The process should be time-bounded and aim to take concrete decisions in 2023 and 2024 at the latest. Third, an ad hoc committee and not a work program should be established at COP27 to fulfill the mandate of the designating this fund. This ad hoc committee shall have a clear mandate and equitable regional representation. It shall be results-oriented, and financial resources are to be provided for the effective functioning of this committee. Fourth, we also consider that it's important to have the opportunity to discuss innovative instruments to be explored, for example, debt relief, debt cancellations, and debt for climate swap. In terms of the Glasgow dialogue, we also share the views expressed by AOSIS in the sense that this could be a space to discuss solutions, perhaps, or contributions outside of the convention. Let me highlight 3 key points on this. First, we consider that the June dialogue was very helpful for having a common understanding of the existing gaps. Second, the Glasgow dialogue could be used to provide feedback to the work of the committee. And third, we see the Glasgow dialogue as a space to guarantee broad participation and inclusivity. Thank you very much, Madam Co-Facilitator.
Thank you, and thank you to you and others to really provide responses specifically to the questions. I have Switzerland. You have the floor, please.
Thank you. Thank you, Madam Co-Facilitator, and good morning, colleagues, and thanks for the very rich exchange of views this morning. It's very helpful. For the process going forward, important for us is that it is inclusive and participatory, and so we envision a broader process than an ad hoc committee as proposed by some. It's important for us that stakeholders can fully participate, from those who are affected by the effects of climate change, but also the actors that are involved in the responses in the different thematic areas relevant for averting, minimizing, and addressing loss and damage, including from civil society, UN organizations, MDBs, IFIs, and so on. We also need a process that is in-depth but efficient. So we should build on the Glasgow dialogue that takes place at the SBs, but it should be strengthened and enhanced substantially. Like Bangladesh mentioned shortly before me, it's currently not sufficient as it is structured. So we're open to also having additional spaces for discussions, whether there are workshops or another modality. We would just flag here that important is not just the quantity of meetings, but the quality of these meetings, and they need to be well prepared. Here we're open to preparatory work, which could also draw from the work of the WIM EXCOM, as well as its task force and expert groups, including its expert group on action and support, which is already tasked with preparing reports on the sources of finance for averting, minimizing, addressing loss and damage that are directly relevant for these discussions, and that will update the landscape compared to the last versions of this paper. But these spaces also need to be substantive and allow for solution-oriented discussions. I fully agree with AOSIS. It's not about a scientific exchange on slow onset events, for example, but it's about concrete solutions, especially in terms of the funding arrangements in those spaces. And it's also important that those discussions are captured through reporting, which would inform our deliberations at COP28 CMA5 and at COP29 CMA6 to decide on the most effective funding arrangements for responding to loss and damage. There were many interesting proposals that were made yesterday and today on how to structure those discussions. In our view, the most conducive way to do this would be to focus on specific challenges of loss and damage, like many said, such as rapid response, reconstruction, non-economic losses, slow onset events, extreme weather events, and so on. Again, in each of these areas, there are different actors and different challenges and also different responses. And in our view, it's critical to look at the actors under UNFCCC and the actors, or let's say better said, the sources under UNFCCC and then the sources and actors outside UNFCCC together to have a holistic view of the financial architecture and the responses there. And let me just conclude with 4 overarching considerations for our work. Responding to the scale of the challenge of loss and damage will require efforts being stepped up by all those who can contribute. It's all hands on deck on this. And we think it's also important to look at innovative sources, including those that would be based on the polluter pays principle. Secondly, in our deliberations, it's essential for us to ensure that the most vulnerable countries, people, and communities are front and center, and that support actually reaches those who need it most on the ground. So with a view to leaving no one behind, this should be the benchmark for the solutions in the process that we will be looking into. Third, we will not resolve loss and damage in a silo. We agree with others that we have limited purview to mandate other processes, but as the leading or the foremost multilateral regime on climate change, it is in our hands to give that decisive impulse to the other processes and the other actors out there to achieve an effective response to loss and damage commensurate with the scale of the challenge. And just finally, there are already existing and effective channels through which support can already be channeled right now, such as through the Central Emergency Relief Fund, the Climate Risk and Early Warning Systems Initiative, the Disaster Relief Emergency Fund, or the Global Facility on Disaster Risk Reduction and Recovery, many of which are very responsive and can provide funding, can disperse funding very quickly. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. I don't see any other flags up, and we have actually also reached the end of our time. Oh, sorry. Oh, I'm sorry. Yes, Gambia, you have the floor. It's Gambia. Sorry, just to clarify, and maybe I understand some of you are sitting in different seats, given this is indeed not a plenary but an informal consultation. So we had seen, and I'm sorry, I really can't see from here. It's a bit difficult, apart from those in the very first lines. So the Gambia did not want to take the floor, is that correct? Because that has disappeared here from the screen. Was there anybody? Maybe you can also just wave in the traditional way. Okay, there is. Can I see the EU? I see the EU. Okay. EU, you have the floor.
Thank you. Apologies for the confusion. Thanks, Co-Chair. I just wanted to pick up on some of the points yesterday quite concisely. So just to note, we agree with G77 that we do need a political decision here at COP27 that signals new recognition of the need for funding and commitment to take action on funding solutions within the UNFCCC to respond to loss and damage, while also linking to those outside of the process. So just to acknowledge that we do understand that political signal is important to make at that point, at this stage. And we also see that the political message can outline a clearly structured process with milestones. And I was quite taken by the suggestions that have come up in the room that are quite constructive on ways forward for that. For example, an ad hoc expert group, and that's something that we can consider and possibly have conversations outside of the room as well to find out more about thoughts on that. And on that, we heard slightly different interpretations of what the ad hoc expert group might do, but certainly some very interesting ideas. But noting that there were some concerns yesterday raised by G77 about the cost and times that workshops can take. And we propose this as a way forward to bring out the voices, the initiatives and the views of governments tackling loss and damage already to inform the solutions, and also to bring in those external voices, including the voices of Indigenous people, and noting the very broad range of issues that we'll have to deal with, but also the very context-specific issues and the indigenous knowledge that's important to bring into this process. However, we do agree that we need to find the right balance in terms of activities over the next 2 years, and make sure that it's manageable and that it's efficient, and we select the right kind of balance within that. And in doing so, the workshops are not something that we would particularly push for, but we are open because we've heard a few others also mention this in the room today. I'll stop there. Thank you.
Thank you very much. With this, I don't see any other flags, and indeed we are at the end of the time. And we've really heard a lot of very substantial inputs in relation to the questions we posed, and the focus on the process, the timeline, the role of different bodies, and also relating that to the outcome that we want to achieve, and reminders of the focus of this agenda item and on funding arrangements. So, and we are hearing also how this has helped understanding each other better with what the purpose of specific modalities, for example, is. Now, let me ask you for a little bit of patience. I will just have a little break for us to consult before I get back to you in relation to the next steps. But thank you so far for all your contributions. Thanks.
the world's most witnessed event. The Mother of the World invites you to confront together the climate crisis. Efforts united in fulfilling global goals. Solutions for the world's most pressing challenges. COP27, Sharm el-Sheikh, Egypt, 2022.